Greetings and welcome to another edition of Pecora's Micamine Schoolhouse. This is about wrapping up our September 2018 videos. We've captured 3.5 hours, that was through yesterday, and we've done another hour or two today. So welcome to this edition, and I'd like to welcome co-hosts with me, Tracy Hansen and Ralph and Ruth Balla, who are neighbors. We're on Barrel Mountain Road, very historic location or historic mine, and you see our hats, we all match, and this is the RL Balla Inc. of South Acworth. What is it that you did, Ralph, that celebrates the hat?
Well, I always wore a hat, I guess. Yeah. And I started this business here when I was before I got out of high school. I bought my first truck when I was, about a sophomore in high school. And
so you're like maybe 16, 15, 16?
Well, 15, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
We got it in perspective.
Yeah, and we hauled feldspar. And us senior boys took turns driving my truck so that I could go to school part-time anyway. And we had a good time. Yeah, well, except
when somebody got caught.
Yeah. Yeah, he thought it was his son that was driving my truck, so he called up to the principal, and the principal and I we were tight. He was a great man. I got to say that. It's too bad there ain't more of them around now.
Like that.
Yeah. Yes, he understood. And anyway.
Mr. Metcalf.
Yeah, Mr. Metcalf. Dan Metcalf was his name. And he, if you worked, behaved yourself mostly, I mean, not all the time, you had to have a little bit of fun, but then he'd treat you right. But we had I had a classmate boy that got in a little tussle up in the boys' room, and somebody reported it to the office, and when Mr. Metcalf went up, the guy swung at him. So Mr. Metcalf didn't bother him.
This is a student or?
Yeah, the student swung at the principal
of
the school. And that Metcalf, the principal, he grabbed him right by the back of the neck, shirt collar and whatnot, and he let him right out of there, and he got probably about 15 feet from the front door that had the bar that opens, Yeah. Well, he gave him enough get going, so that he didn't have to open the door. He just hit the doors and out he went for a week.
Can't do that anymore now, can you?
Couldn't do that, by God. He'd be in jail the rest of his life, But by God, that boy didn't come back for a week, and when he did come back, he didn't try hitting him the second time.
Okay. Back up, and what happened to the other boy that was driving the truck?
Oh,
and the father saw him driving or thought, and what happened when he called in?
Well, the Metcalf, Mr. Metcalf, who, as I say, he understood what I was doing, knew exactly. And he said, yes, I don't think he is in school today. He had to, So I lost my first man that I had hired then. That was gone.
But you've obviously hired many since then. You've had a very long, successful tenure in business. But before we talk a little more of that, I'd love to hear, how did you start driving for feldspar? So this was the U-Haus mine?
Yeah, you'd run right down here.
Would you do it before school, after school, during school?
Oh, no, during school.
During school?
Yeah, during school hours. I'd usually drive it in the morning, and then I'd go to school at noontime, and one of the boys would skip school and drive my truck. But I want only, I don't know. We didn't have to have a truck license then, commercial license.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I probably was 16, must have, but I've been at it quite a while.
Well, tell him about he could drive in South Acworth or in Acworth when he was before he was 16. Remember?
Oh yeah. They had a sawmill up the river from where my father folks lived, and It was when they get done, they had a hell of a big stack of slabs, you know, the waste, because they didn't chip it back in them days. So, dumb me, you know, I said, I was only about 12 years old at that time. Dad had already made a doodle tractor of an old Chevrolet, and so I bought the whole big, I don't know how many cords or slabs there were there, and I peddled them around town, you know.
But people use firewood?
Yeah, firewood.
Yeah. So when you drove for the spar, where did the spar, it came out of the Uhas mine, which is here in South Acworth. Where did you drive it to?
Down to Cold River, and I wished I could tell you that.
Oh, the crushing plant?
In the crushing plant down
where
there.
Aubuchon Hardware is?
Yeah, right there.
Okay.
Yeah, we used to go down, pull right across the road, back across the road, and dump down into the building right there.
You would dump it into a bin that then could feed right into the building?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting, because those early crushing plants were on a single level, and they had to keep lifting the product back up to keep crushing it, from what I understand.
This one here wasn't.
No?
We dumped it upstairs from there.
And then it just, by the time it came out, it was crushed enough?
Yeah, they could, it would go down. They worked it down, I don't know, by hand. Or I think they had an old rig. They pushed it around on the cement floor.
How close was the train? Would they be able to load it right onto a rail car? Did they have to? I know some places I've heard about having to put the spar into burlap bags, and
I think that's what they did with it when after it was.
But did they? Because the train that spur
come
line
right in there, come right in where the school was.
Yeah,
I mean where the store is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as I say, I'd drive part of the day, and then some of the other senior boys would drive my truck. I'd wave to them as they went by.
I have a picture, and this is something that came out of the Alsted Historical Society, and we believe it might be the earlier beginnings of the Uhas mine, but I know there were multiple cuts. Do you recognize it? I mean, to have 4 rail lines coming out is pretty fancy, you know, so, you know, they're moving a lot of material with those 4 lines.
That's the 4th one over there, Dad.
Yeah, but I never, all the time I was up there, we never had no railroad lines.
Okay, so none. That, again.
That picture didn't come from Uhas mine.
Okay, good, thank you. That helps clarify it. It's one step further.
Yeah.
I'm
sure it didn't. Well, it couldn't have, because if it had to come down the side of the mountain, and there was never no railroad tracks up that mountain.
Each piece typically would be loaded by hand into the trucks. I think you have some examples here. Was it the Sterlings that you would be driving, the chain drives?
No, we had just regular trucks. Mine was a 41 Ford, I think.
All right, we're
just regular truck.
Almost to the end of our first segment here. So how many ton could that hold about?
I think we was hauling about 6 tons.
6, that's all right. I've heard. And the Sterlings, would they have been driven
Sterlings,
earlier or other places?
Well, there was the other mine. See, this Uhas mine was on this side of the mountain and down there, you see, and the
Colony mine.
Colony mine was right on top, going down.
Like the Allen, and the Allen was older.
Yep.
All right, we're going to talk about these locations when we come back in just a minute, so thank you again, and we'll ask...
Great.
Yeah, you're happy, all right, we're all happy here. Thank you so much, Ralph and Ruth, and we'll be back for part 2.